Hey, this is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. This is a bit of an ad-lib video. I'm calling it Living with Linux Episode 1. So I'll just talk over some of the things I've experienced since I've gone to Linux as my daily driver for the first time in about 6 years. A little history. I've run Linux as my daily driver probably about 4 times. This would be the fourth or fifth time now. The longest I ever did it for was many years ago. I think when I switched to an AM no to a 90 a GTX a 900 GTX because I don't know the exact circumstances, but it had to do with the video card and the drivers. And at the time, I had switched from an AMD to an NVIDIA card, and the video drivers on the NVIDIA side. Oh, no, I switched to an AMD card from an NVIDIA card, and the AMD drivers in Linux were horrible. And back then, especially, AMD drivers are horrible. Modern day, their gaming / consumer drivers are good. Their pro side drivers are still horrible. I work in IT, and in many places, still a fireball offense for you to get AMD professional graphics cards. So, that being said, that's not what this is about. I ran Linux for, again, about a year at that time. It was Ubuntu. I enjoyed, for the most part. I figured I'd do most of what I was doing back then, which is playing the games I wanted to play. And I would boot over to Windows for the games I couldn't get working in Linux. And that worked. And I did my work stuff just fine. It worked. Now, the reason I switched to Linux in this modern era is because I am never running Windows 11. Just, it ain't gonna happen. Okay. Windows 10 with the privacy stuff. A lot of people complain about that. Still run their Android phones or their Apple phones, and they do everything that they're claiming Microsoft is doing with Windows 10. Windows 11, on the other hand, is very invasive from the things I've seen on it. Not that Microsoft is definitely going to do this, but it makes it more likely that they will actively monitor what you're doing or have the capability to do that, whereas Windows 10 was more like Android and Apple stuff where you can actually turn that stuff off or block it, but Windows 11 makes it more difficult to do that. That being said, there are annoyances in Windows that just, with not running Windows 11, and the annoyance is, like, for example, every time Microsoft does a major update, it resets all of my audio setup. I have, between my two monitors, which have HD audio in both of them, what's built onto my motherboard, plus two other devices in there, I have 6 audio outputs. I have them configured a certain way. My primary, I have certain things that go to each monitor, on the Windows side at least, so that, like, if I had for example, I have a program I only run on one monitor, so I have audio output in there, so I know if I hear something come from that side, I know that program is doing something, telling me something. I use the hardware for my purposes. Windows, every time they do a major install, which is like every 2 months or so, just wipe the settings out, set it to helpful Microsoft defaults, and I have to reset them all. It's very frustrating. And I'm done with that. Since that plus never Windows 11, at least as a desk driver, daily driver, that was why I made the move. So right now I'm running Linux Mint, I believe it's 20.2. So it's not something I remember how to do. So let's just see how do we find out what version? I know how to do that. Okay. So and if we hit an about version, system info. So this tells me I'm running Linux Mint 21 Cinnamon, not 22. Sorry. This gives you some information about my system here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to see if I can make it a little bigger. Can't really make it bigger. My desktop driver right now is an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 6-core 12-thread CPU. I have 16 gigs of RAM. And my primary, I boot off of a 512 gig NVMe drive with some supplemental drives plus my network storage. One thing I've noted, and if I go to system monitor, I believe it's called. I really wish there was I need to learn more about this to make it look better. But the gist of it is on memory. You see how I have Brave, a whole bunch of Brave. I have like 15 browser. I'm a heavy browser user, so that's a given. Okay, but the memory usage under Linux seems better than under Windows. Now, I think that's because Windows tries to upfront load stuff for you versus what Linux does, where it just kind of is less aggressive about that behavior. Now, unused RAM is wasted money, okay? So your RAM that's not in use by programs, ideally you want your operating system using it as catch to preemptively load stuff for you. That was a good behavior of Windows. I think Linux does to a lesser extent. So I'm not complaining about that. But the one thing I will note is that now I use Brave. I stopped using Chrome because I don't want Google using my CPU cycles for their purposes. But even under Linux, when I load Chrome up, it uses less memory. So I'm guessing that Linux limits Chrome's user system behavior quite a bit. That all being said, that's not what the gist of this video is. So I want to talk about a few things I've noted, some things I found that were good. As I mentioned in my live stream when I was talking about this, one of the things I'm doing is transitioning away from Microsoft. I've used Office 365 for years for work-related purposes. It's useful to have a copy of Microsoft at home because I have to use it at work all the time, so I can check features out or whatever. I don't need that so much anymore. I have a copy of Office that I can always just use offline, so to speak, with Office 365. But the main hit to me, and the most useful tool Microsoft ever invented, is called OneNote. It's actually a great application. The thing is, I want it out of the cloud, and so I had to come up with a solution that worked for me. So I came up with using the Synology drive to mirror my software, my data, so to speak, between any of my home computers, and I could access it on my phone if I need to. And I'm using, I think it's called Zim Desktop Wiki, about Zim. So, and basically to create the desktop wiki, and then I will set up as a web page accessible on my Synology, so I can just browse it at will. And the cool thing about it is, for example, in OneNote, what I would do is I would print a PDF to OneNote, and it would automatically scan each page in as a JPEG, which is useful to an extent. But I lost access to the original PDFs unless I preserved them in another form. So what I found that I could do, if you see here, is let's see if I could find one. Okay, so let's see. So the TP-Link AV1000 power line adapter. So you have it scanned in with two graphic images here. I'm going to go search for, and see if I can get the manual about TP-Link AV1000 manual. By the way, that's a nice product. By the way, the TP-Link AV1000 power line Ethernet adapter. It basically uses outlets in your home to transmit your Ethernet over cable between rooms, so you don't have to run 50 feet of Cat 6 or whatever just to get to your TV, your bedroom TV. In an apartment living, that's pretty good. As long as the grounding is set up properly in your apartment, which you'll know right away if the device doesn't connect, or if you know how to test it electrically. I'm not a professional electrician, though I do know how to do certain things, but I'm not going to explain to you how to test your wiring in your home, because that's not just because I don't want to run afoul of certain rules. But there are other YouTube videos which will explain it so a lay consumer can do it. So anyway, as long as your grounding is set up properly, your devices will work. Now, this is not the one I'm talking about. Actually, it is. Same image. So I have the PDF here, right? So previously I had the JPEG, and I'm going to download this. I'm going to rename it. Here's an annoyance, right? If I just see this pops up, but Linux and Windows, this would immediately grab focus. I wouldn't have to go click up here to change it. In other words, I wouldn't have to click there first, then start typing. That would be the focus. It would grab the focus, so to speak, in computer terms. But I'll rename this something useful. TP-Link AV1000 power line Ethernet adapter. So now I have that saved in this folder here, and I'm going to do this actually. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the Zim personal wiki thing and make a sub. I'm going to call this TP link AV1000 power line Ethernet adapter. Now I have the option. I could do the same thing and potentially save as. Well, see, and again, it doesn't immediately. If I start typing, you see nothing's happening up there when we type, because this, even though it's highlighted, it doesn't grab the focus, so to speak. It doesn't. And under Windows it does. Now that could be a setting I could change. I don't know, but that's one of the things I have to figure out. It's not a pet peeve or annoyance about Linux. It's just something that, one, you have to get used to from the working flow point of view, and two, you have to see if there's a workaround. Right? But now I'm not going to save that because I don't want it in the JPEG format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a link attachment. When I do that, now notice it immediately did that, right? Now if I go into the into my Zim desktop wiki here, home, see it's on my Synology drive, and I go to Zim notes, and I go to resources and instruction manuals. There is now a folder called TP Link Power Line Ethernet Adapter. And within that folder is this, okay? Now, if I had just planted let's do the other way. However, this time we're all going to save so we can show the difference here. I'm just going to call it get image. I'm not going to change the name because I'm not keeping that. And if I want to add an image in here, insert, let's make sure I'm a little ahead there, okay? Insert image. So I just put that image in there, right? Let's see, let's go look in that folder again. The TP link. Nothing is there. So this links to that image. So if I delete that image, and then potentially go away and come back, like this image it's gone. Like it's not saved anywhere unless I specifically go and choose to save it in there. But I don't want to do that. I prefer the PDF, so I could always, if someone needs a copy, I can always print it later and then send it to them. And having the original PDF, and this is what making the link does. Now the PDF pops open, and I could read it as a PDF, which is much preferable in terms of reprinting it later and whatnot. And since that one's been transferred to my personal wiki, now I can delete that. Now this one, I'm not going to go looking. This is a single page. I'm going to see if I can find it. We'll do one more, and I'll go on to another Linux topic. Tree Star, electricity usage meter manual. Let's see if it'll find. Nope. Now, a lot of times, there are third-party websites which will hold these manuals for you when the original company doesn't choose to leave it there, so to speak. But in this case, I'm just going to save it and see if it'll work. There we go. Tree. Now, what this device is, by the way, it's one you basically plug it into your outlet and plug something into it. It tells you how many watts it's using. It's a pretty simple, straightforward way to monitor your electricity on a device, And by the way, I'd strongly recommend everyone get one of them. So if you think you have an electrical problem, you can plug it into anything, and it'll tell you. Like by electrical problem, I mean your bill is too high or something like that. You can find which device is drawing a lot of power. Like an older refrigerator, even though back then it might have been rated for low power, over time that it becomes less efficient. You'll be able to tell and deal with it, right? So now I have that. I can delete that. So I have the JPEG for that. I'm going to do one more time to show you a new subpage. And this is going to be the Tree Star electricity usage meter. Okay. Now I do want to check something. For the most part, I've been doing PDFs, as you can see. But even when I do a JPEG or whatever, so I'm going to go in for manuals. I'm going to make a folder. Call it Tree Star Electricity. The name of the thing, obviously. Electricity. Usage meter. And I'm going to copy this. There's another thing. Right-click copy is gone in Linux. And I don't know if I could re-enable that. It's another pet peeve. That is a pet peeve. I was very right-click. I was a very light right-click drag and drop person. But my understanding is I can shift left-click it and it'll do the same thing. But that's two. It's just a different behavior. That's perfectly fine. There's no complaints about it. I just wish I could re-enable the right-click drag and drop in Linux. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I will find out about that, and if I do, you'll know about it. So now, remember, the reason I put this in this folder is because when you just drop an image in there, it doesn't make it. It won't make a folder, or it'll just images. But I'm going to insert an image now. See, and I'm going to have to go to Home, Knowledge Drive, Zim Notes, Resources, Instruction Manuals, and this, and boom. And now I've inserted, the image can stay there, and that image is perfectly readable, but it's referring to this image that's saved in my wiki, so I won't lose it anymore. Okay. And again, you can delete it. So that part is working out. The ability of, I figure by the next week or the week after, I'll be able to get rid of OneNote entirely. So that'll work itself out. What else has Linux have? What other behaviors, so to speak, have I had to adjust to? Let's see. This is 17 minutes. I want to end this around 20. I don't want to go crazy here. I found most of the replacement programs I'm okay with. The Zim Desktop Wiki, you'll see over here on my mouse side. LibreOffice is fine. The only thing is, I really wish, like, one thing Microsoft Word has in it that is really advanced is the outlining feature. And, I get around it in LibreOffice, but it's not as convenient as the way it is set up in Word. I've been reading around to try to find outlining, an actual outliner. Like for, and I haven't found anything that really appeals to me as far as replacement technique or replacement outlining software, right? Yet, but that's something I'm going to search for. But I have a workaround to do with the outline that I have to do for when I write my scripts for my videos or whatever, which is, I mean, it's a little less convenient than Word, but it works. I'm okay with that. Ramina here, as far as a replacement for Microsoft Remote Desk Management, it's perfectly fine. It gives me access to my VMs or whatever, pretty good. My AVI 2 Demux works just fine. Handbrake. Now there's an inconvenience. I'll show you one right now that I'm trying to. Like, I had set up on the Windows side that if this is a Windows batch file, that on the Windows when I run, it would automatically make the index file for all 5 of these videos sitting here that I've DVR'd, right? So I have to go in and edit out some commercials and whatnot from them. And on what I have to do on Linux, if you don't have a batch file to do it, what you have to do is this. If I open up AVI Demux, and I go here, video, other locations, spare video. Every time I do it, it's going to one by one make this indexing file, right? When you're doing one video, it's not a big deal. But sometimes I'll let my DVR go for a week and then go back and pick the 7 things I want to keep out of the 25 things I recorded. Then I want to drop those in there like now, and I want to be able to just, let's say while I go cook, I can have it build all the indexes and then come back and do the editing. Otherwise, AVI 2 Demux works just like it does under Windows. I'm just advancing forward. This is This Old House. I'm a big This Old House fan, so I've been updating. I've DVR'd over the years, and now these in particular, 1080p copies of it. So I'm upgrading my previous 720 DVRs to 1080p. So I can edit out this little PBS commercial in here. You know. Right there. And again, AVI 2D Mux for video editing when you're not so much YouTube videos, but for video edits of like TV shows and whatever. I found that AVI Demux is the best editor for that. It'll give you total control of what you need to do, and it doesn't, because all you do is cutting out the chunks of video that have commercials or whatever. Or if you're taping a whole like 5-hour concert, you only want one band, you can cut down to what you want, and then just hit save. And I have to save that somewhere. In particular, I'm just going to save it to. There's another thing. AVI 2D Mux on Windows side would automatically suggest this as the title. I have to type it out. I'm just going to save it to this location here, which is an SSD. And I will copy it. So let's call it. It's This Old House. 19. By the way, I run Plex. I strongly urge you, whenever you're running Plex, to, even though you don't have to, as long as the folder name for the show has the year it came out, Plex is fine. I strongly urge you to put the year in the episode itself. It will resolve certain annoyances that are rare, and I'm not going to go crazy on this video, but they do pop up. Cambridge 2012. Scandinavian Modern. And save. Again, no issues running the program other than that one change where it doesn't suggest the title, and I have to figure out how to convert that batch file for Windows to a Linux batch file, which I'll probably work on next. It's not a big thing, so I'm not. I'll work on that another time, like another month or whatever. I have things I have to prioritize. And go in and get rid of the ones I don't want, and boom. So that worked itself out. I was surprised, but Make MKV, which is what I use to rip DVDs and Blu-rays when I buy them, works just fine under Linux. I use a plug-in portable Blu-ray player because I don't see any need to leave it in my computer at all times, and plus I could use it on my laptop or another PC or something. I can plug it into my server if I need to rip something in there and so forth. What else? So the software transition has gone well. Brave works 9 out of 10 times. Brave is fine now. I was having a problem last time where I couldn't get Citrix to run in Brave correctly. There was some sort of certificate thing going on, but it fixed itself. I don't know if I think it maybe upon a Brave update fixed that. There were a couple of Brave updates since then, so it fixed itself. Anything else to comment on before I finish this video up? So I use a program called Solar in place of to monitor my Logitech stuff. Linux actually does a better job monitoring the battery life of the batteries in my keyboard and mouse, so I'm happy about that. I think that's it for now. And I will have another video maybe in a week or two. This is Matt. It's been on Burple73 talking about my experience of living with Linux. I'm going to call this episode 1. Have a nice day. I am out of here.